What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of MUT Tips. I'm your host, Sean Taylor from the Made Up Theater, and let's jump into today's topic, how to organize an improv jam. For those who are unfamiliar with an improv jam, it's essentially an open mic for improvisers, where improvisers, a group of them, get together and just play together. They play improv games, they do improv scenes, both short form and long form, and possibly even a combination of the two. Now, even though it is like an open mic, it's still very much centered around the core concepts of improv, yes-anding each other, making each other look good. And the thing about improv jams is you're probably going to get a bunch of different types of improvisers. Maybe those who have been improvising for a long time, more advanced improvisers, and even some people who have never improvised before in their lives. And those are really exciting people to have in an improv jam. So let's go through how the best way to organize an improv jam is. So the first thing you want to do is decide what's your audience going to be. And I always recommend, if you've never organized an improv jam before, is just focus on, a closer group of people. Maybe people you know, fellow cast members, fellow students, people that you are familiar with and you have no problems with at all. So you can start to fine-tune the most effective way to facilitate an improv jam. It's always best to start with the people you know and then work up to allowing people from the public to join. When you start to allow people from the public to join, just know it's not always going to be crystal clear what their mentality is when they come to an improv jam. They may not understand the intricate nature of how it works and how improv's core philosophy is about just a community and an ensemble. So you'll get people who may not be familiar with that, but don't worry, it should be open to everybody once you fine-tune the system. Another question that some people might have is how many people should be allowed to attend the improv jam? I've been to a range of improv jams that could even be upwards of 80 people. And generally those types of jams, you may not be able to get on stage, very often. You may not even be able to get on stage at all. It depends how it's facilitated. But initially, focus on a smaller group of maybe no more than 12. Just start with that. That way you can go through the whole process. After that, I say, try to go no more than 20 to 30 people. It's up to you. On Zoom right now, it's best to limit it to about 20 people because it can get a little bit hectic keeping people engaged in the virtual platform. So start a little small and then start to branch out with maybe a little bit of a larger group. So when the jam starts, you want to start with a formal introduction where you welcome everybody and set the tone, okay? Be positive, be supportive, and, just be energetic. We want to get everybody hyped and excited to participate in this jam. And when you get started, go over a few safety things. If you're improvising on Zoom, you don't really have to focus on this too much, but if you're at your own personal space, it helps to go over just a few things in terms of where the people can improvise when they're performing in a scene or game. So if you have a backstage area or a second level balcony, I usually tell people don't go up there, don't go backstage, just stay on the primary portion of the stage. That way you can keep an eye on them, okay? After that, you want to work into just some other ground rules just in terms of content. Now, it's kind of up to you how you want to approach this. I always just say for jams, just say, hey, let's keep everything family friendly, okay? Now, some people might swear because it's improv, it'll happen sometimes. I'm not going to kick them out of the jam, but we want to set up that this place is a safe environment, okay? So say that, obviously things that are sexist, homophobic, racist, transphobic, anything inappropriate is deemed, bad, obviously, and you could possibly be kicked out of the jam. Just set up common courtesy, Most people won't have a problem with this at all, but it always helps to just start the jam, just letting the people know how you facilitate, okay? In addition to that, I always go over a few tips too. Just if people have never improvised, just very basic improv tips, such as, yes and. Agree to stuff and say yes and add on to stuff, okay? And then also, make each other look good. That's the big thing. And obviously, we want to leave judgments at the door. That's the big thing. Leave judgments at the door. This isn't going to be perfect improv, obviously. There's some people who, again, have never improvised before. They're going to maybe, make mistakes and, deny ideas. That's gonna happen, okay? And we need to embrace that rather than just say, oh, you're bad at improv, get out of this jam. Absolutely not. So tell everybody, leave their egos, leave the judgments at the door, and just welcome everybody from all facets of the improv community and outside the improv community to this jam. One thing that you might want to do, especially if it's a jam open to people who you may not be familiar with, is to survey the room for their experience level. So you might say, raise your hand if you are a beginner or have never improvised before, or raise your hand if you're intermediate and have been improvising for a year or so, or a few months. Raise your hand if your experience has been improvising for several years, along those lines. I usually have people close their eyes when they're raising their hand because it's just for my information. It helps me facilitate the actual jam. When you're on Zoom, you can actually do a process of just creating a poll. So I'm on the Zoom platform right here, and I might click polls down here and click add a question. And it's gonna bring up a little page up here. So when it brings up a question, I might say, what is your experience level? And at that point, I'd probably make it anonymous because it does help me just kind of survey, what the levels of experience are. And at this point, I would obviously type the same question in for type your question. That's just the title of it. And I might say, never improvise, something like that. Or beginner, or intermediate, or advanced. So along those lines, you could even add for intermediate, improvising a few months along those lines or something like that. And advanced could be like improvising a few years. Once that's done, we save it, and now it's in the system, which means if I bring it up here, boom, I have this here. I click launch polling, and at that point, everybody in the chat will have that poll and they can start answering, okay? So this is just a way to gauge, level of experience, because if you have some beginners, you want to help them out along the way. If there's more advanced or intermediate people, then it can kind of dictate how you explain games. Because you don't want to go in knowing that people know how to play everything you're about to say, which causes you to be a little maybe less detailed with your explanations. But if there's a lot of beginners in there, you want to be detailed and help them out along the way. So if you're ready to start a jam, a good way to go about it might be to start with just some easy warm-up games, or just one at least, just to get everybody fired up and playing together as a larger group. Now, if you're at your theater, you could just kind of do whatever you feel is right, just keep it uplifting, supportive, and energetic. But on Zoom, it's a little trickier sometimes, so I'm going to demonstrate a few options that you can do on Zoom. So you can obviously use breakout rooms. So if it's a group of 8 or more, you can come down here to breakout rooms and maybe assign 2 breakout rooms and put 4 in each. And if there's more than that, obviously try to do 5, no more than 6 per breakout room. And in those breakout rooms, you can have them facilitate some type of game, like a word association game, where they establish an order first and then just, say a word, and then the next person says the first thing that comes to their head. I won't go into too many details about how that game works, but the only downside to breakout rooms is that you may not know these people as well. You might just get some people who have never done improv before, and it can sometimes create, a potential for a scenario where something inappropriate happens. So if you do breakout rooms, the best thing to do is to actually send one person who who you can give it the co-hosting duties to go to each breakout room just to facilitate and make sure everything goes well, okay? Now, if you want to do a game with everybody in the room and not in breakout rooms, there's a few ways that you could go about this. So, for example, we can play a game that's called Everybody Go, where the way this works is, if we're in gallery mode right now, everybody's showing, but I can, click on here and spotlight Joe. And if Joe's spotlighted, he's going to say, everybody go, and then do some type of action. So everybody go, blah, 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 something like that. And once that's done, I would cancel the spotlight video, and then everybody would mirror that action, okay? Now, another way you can go about this too is a fun mirroring game that is silent, so it doesn't get too cluttered in terms of everyone talking. And the way this works is you have everybody pair up. You would tell people who's in pairs. So if this was a group of 10, I would start by saying, okay, Joe and Ferd, you're gonna pair up. So the way this would work, though, is we'll pretend that I'm Joe right now, and if I was Joe, I would spotlight Ferd. So I'm going to go over here, since Ferd is my partner, I'm going to click the 3 little dots and spotlight Ferd, and then Ferd would do the same for me, okay? And then we would just play a little fun mirroring game where Ferd might start moving his body and I would mirror his actions. Totally silent, and it's just a fun way to kind of get everybody doing something before we jump into the jam. Now, when it comes to actually jumping into your jam, you might be wondering, what should I do? Like, how should I format it? You can do this in multiple ways. You can do a short form improv jam. You can do a long form improv jam. You can even do stuff like that is more specific, like a musical improv jam, or maybe solo scene improv jam. It's up to you. There's some that are kind of more specific, so I'd recommend just keeping it simple and keeping it along the lines of like maybe something you enjoy doing in improv. I like doing both short form and long form, so my jams I usually make half short form games and half long form games. Now, when I'm jumping into like a short form set and I pick a game, it's best to explain the game in just a detailed fashion and just give them some tips for how to play it without just focusing on teaching, okay? Once the game starts, you shouldn't be giving them coaching or instructions for how to play the game because it's a jam. People just want to play. They don't want to like be taught how to play. They just want to do it. So if I were to jump into a game of like New Choice, for example, I'll go to my desktop here and I might call up like 2 people on stage. So I might call up Joe and Ferd. Everybody else would have their video stopped and Joe and Ferd would have their video on. And I'd explain the game, assume they're both beginners. And I would just say, hey, for this game, you're going to play a game called New Choice. During this game, I might call out the command of New Choice. When I say that, you just have to come up with something different from what you just said. It could be simple. For example, if I said, here's an apple, and the host said New Choice, I might say, here's a banana. New Choice, here's a PB&J sandwich. New Choice, here's a Mazda. Whatever you want, the first thing that comes to your head, okay? And during this scene, at any point, I can call New Choice on anybody in the scene and until I actually say, and that's time, and conclude the game. A good thing for beginners is sometimes instead of giving them a suggestion, maybe give them a specific scenario that could be inspired from the other participants or maybe just from your own self. Like you might say, okay, for this scene, Joe and Ferd, you two are going to be superheroes who are organizing a plan to defeat the villain in town, okay? Whatever you want. You can even get suggestions from the audience to inspire who the heroes are and who the villain is. But that way they kind of know what they're jumping into right away, especially if they're beginners. We want to help people who are beginners be successful and to have fun. Now, as you're going through the jam, you want to make the jam feel fresh and have variety because it's not a class. Not everybody's going to play the game of New Choice, for example. It might be just 1 or maybe 2 groups, no more than 2, because we want to keep it feeling like, a growing progressive show where different stuff comes about. And, it's also challenged by choice. Not everybody necessarily is going to play in the jam. They might even just play one game and just sit out and just watch for the rest of the time, okay? They might just watch the whole jam. It's all challenged by choice. Never force people to play in your jam. Now, once you've played a game, you would move on to the next game, and then the next game, and then maybe halfway through you move on to long form, where you might just have them do scenes inspired by, a suggestion that you might give them. They might just be scenes where you just give them a premise and have them go for a minute. It's up to you. All you got to do is just make sure you're specific and assume they don't know, structure for how long form works. Like if Ferd and Joe went on stage, and I'll bring them up real quick, and they were going to do a long form scene, I wouldn't expect them to know certain things like the tag out or, a flashback or an edit, stuff like that. I need to assume that they've never learned those techniques before. So generally, I'll help with that. Like if I'm doing a montage and Ferd and Joe are on stage doing a scene, if I want the scene to be edited, I'm not going to teach people how to do the edit. I'm just going to end the scene and say scene, or maybe play some music, and whatever you tell them. If I say scene or you hear music, your scene's done. And at that point, maybe you would stop your video and the next 2 people would come on stage. Just be very clear with how you are facilitating because this is your jam. You need to let them know how you are structuring it so they can play within your structure. In terms of length, you don't want to go too long. I say keep it around the time of an actual show. Maybe even shorter. An hour-long jam would be great. If maybe it's a bigger group of people and you want to give them more time to be on stage, maybe like 90 minutes. No more than 2 hours, though, because it can get a little tiring, okay? So structure it how you want, but keep it keep them wanting more, okay? Keep them wanting to come back and come to another jam rather than let them get tired and just worn out from jamming together, okay? And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of MUT Tips. Jams can be tricky to organize, but they're a lot of fun. I really love organizing them. So if you have any other questions about how to organize jams, maybe comment down below. I would like to address it maybe in a future video. Maybe I'll do a second video about organizing jams, answering some of your questions. Also, like the video if you enjoyed it, and as always, subscribe on YouTube to be informed of upcoming videos. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next time for another episode of MUT Tips. Bye!